Thank you, Yvette, for that warm introduction, and I want to thank you and everybody else for the Blue-Green Alliance for organizing this very, very important forum and for the tremendous work that you are doing. I'd also like to honor Congressman Clark and thank him for his outstanding remarks this morning. I understand you'll be hearing from Senator Stabenow and from Congressman Dingell. I think we should stop right now and give a round of applause to the great representation that this state has in the United States Congress. And let me tell you something. For me, this is a great personal moment because it's a homecoming. I come from Toledo, Ohio, and you know, for the exciting things on a Saturday night, we'd have to go to Detroit. It's true. You know, CKLW. I remember all those great contests. My dad listened to WJR. But Yvette said some nice things about the Department of Energy, but you know what? It's really all about you. It's about the people here. It's about the great dynamic leadership we're getting from our workers in this country, and you heard it on stage. I want one of those cars. And I want not to have the blood-draining sense from my face when I fill up the gas tank because I won't have to. But listen, we all of us know how important the automobile industry is to our nation. And it's not just about transportation. It's about innovation. It's about manufacturing. It's about getting our groove back. And it starts right here. It starts with the people in this room. And as everybody here knows, this was not a sure thing. This revival that we're experiencing and enjoying was not fated. Now that it's happened, you begin to get that patina of historical inevitability. It wasn't so. It wasn't so. President Obama said, we're not going to let this happen. We're not going to let this happen to this industry that has meant so much to this nation, that means so much to our manufacturing present and to our manufacturing future. He knew what was at stake, and it included over 1 million jobs. He understood that when you're talking about automobile companies, you're not just talking about cars. You're talking about the spirit of America. This is an industry we invented, for crying out loud, okay? The innovation that it has spawned has coursed through the American economy. It's a source of our manufacturing might. And you know what it's about most of all? It's about people. It's about workers. It's about their families. It's about their communities. I know this, okay? All 4 of my grandparents were born in what we call the old country. In fact, the story I was told growing up was they were all transplanted to Cleveland. That's where they were sent from Ellis Island. They were heading to Detroit. We ran out of gas in Toledo. And that's where we stayed. So my dad inherited from his father a little book bindery. We didn't bind books, actually. It was a commercial bindery, and we were, like many, many, many other small family businesses, dependent on the auto industry. So I'd run and make deliveries to General Tire, and Libby Owens Ford, Dana Corporation, the whole supply chain. And you know, we didn't have the internet and we didn't have PCs, so I don't know how many people here remember, but when you used to choose a car, you'd have to choose what color vinyl would go in it. And remember, there would be like these cards with little strips of vinyl glued to the card. I made those cards, okay? And I was so proud to do it from soup to nuts, okay? Because we'd start with the stock, we'd have to make a board with the little pads and glue it and stamp that on the card, and then we'd have to cut these 54-inch strips of vinyl down to these little teeny swatches and stick those things, you know, the names were like Mondrian Stripe, Vermeer Green, and so on and so on. My dad loved naming things. But that was just one small part of it. So take that, replicate it across thousands of families, hundreds of communities, and you just get an inkling of what it's about when you're restoring a lodestone American industry to global leadership. And it translates to every home, to every hearth, to every family. The history of it is incredible. The best field trip I ever had was going to Greenfield Village. How many people here have been to Greenfield Village? I can't wait to take my kids. And one more thing on that, it ain't cars, okay, but just to show you the spirit of innovation and how it lives through this kind of family values. Remember the Wright Bicycle Shop there, okay? Just think about it. You can go to the Smithsonian, I have done this, in Washington, and they got a letter, and I won't get the words exactly right, but it goes something like this. It's a letter to the Librarian of Congress. Dear Sir, we are trying to learn some of the principles about heavier-than-air machines and the potential of flight. Could you refer me to any books or studies? I'll be happy to remit any price that is required. Letters from like 1897, signed, you know, Wilbur Wright. Wilbur Wright. So those two guys who made bicycles and made this little homemade wind tunnel and used their smarts and their wits go to Kitty Hawk in 1903. And they start an industry that the United States still is a global leader. That's the kind of innovation we still get from our people. So never forget, that's the first and foremost thing. But it took some hard choices when President Obama faced those issues. There were people who said he ought not to do what he did, but we worked hard in the cases of GM and Chrysler. We worked through the choices that spared our economy, the catastrophe that would have ensued had those great American companies been allowed to go under. And we are all of us, and not just those of us in this room, but well beyond this room, we're all the beneficiaries of it. And because Americans never miss an opportunity, GM and Chrysler took advantage of that strategic breath of air, and they restructured, and they retooled, and they redesigned. And they didn't just try to go back to the old ways of doing business. And we're now making an incredible comeback, a national comeback and a global comeback. After 7 years of decline, we are out there producing. In the last 2 years, the industry has added more than 160,000 jobs, and there may be 100,000 more on the way. And you know, with every job, there's a family that goes with it. And here's one for you, for those of us who spend time poring over charts and graphs and so forth. Last year, for the first time in about 2 decades, GM, Chrysler, and Ford have all increased their U.S. market share. So thanks to President Obama's leadership, the crisis was averted. So now here's the question. So now's that we rest on our laurels, right? No. Now we're just going to sit back and say, oh, glad that moment has passed, right? You know what all of us here notice? I know I notice every time I go to the pump. Gas prices are still too high. They've come down a bit. It's still too high. It is shocking just to fill up the tank. So we need to have an energy strategy built for the future. We need, therefore, and not just here, but around the world, fuel-efficient vehicles so everybody can get more miles for their money. So what does that mean? That means we got to keep innovating. We need to build and design efficient vehicles for America and the world. We're not going to go back to making the old cars. We've got to build better ones. And fortunately, and you just heard excellent examples here a few minutes ago, we've got the workers, we've got the R&D, we can make it happen. So while Yvette was very kind to talk about the Department of Energy, we know our role. We're partners, and we're proud partners. But it happens out here in the private sector, and it happens with the industry, and it happens with the unions, and it happens with the workers. So let's talk a little bit about fuel and vehicle efficiency. Last July, I'm sure all of you know, President Obama proposed the most ambitious standards yet for fuel economy. 55 miles per gallon by 2025, nearly. This is the most ambitious step taken yet to reduce our excessive dependence on imported oil. And you know what it took to get there? This wasn't some Washington mandate. People from the government sat down with people in the unions and people in the industry, and they worked it out. And you know, something that's consensual, you work out that way, that sticks, okay? So that is the kind of cooperation and partnership, public-private partnership, that's going to bring us to reduce our oil dependence, get you cheaper fuel, and let everybody drive further and farther with their families. It took tremendous effort. So by 2025, what's going to happen with these new standards? It's going to save every family on the order of $8,000 per vehicle, okay? It's going to reduce our oil consumption on the order of 2.2 million barrels per day. Get this, it's going to keep more than 6 billion metric tons of greenhouse gas emissions from polluting the air that we breathe. And don't forget this, it's not just about our country. These standards and our company's ability to meet these standards are going to help us compete in Europe and Japan, which already have tough vehicle standards. So we're going to be selling more exports, improving our trade balance, and creating more American jobs. And finally, as we go through this, you find that these standards drive innovation. They drive new technologies. So we're going to be getting advanced combustion. We're going to be getting better lightweight materials, stronger materials. We're going to get improved electrical vehicle drivetrains, which you just heard a bit about, and a host of other products. Each of these things leads to stronger companies and more jobs. Now finally, and I think a lot about this, it's going to enhance our national security. You remember President Obama said, let's cut our oil import bill by a third by 2025. That's important to our national security. That also will come out of these fuel efficiency standards. So we're doing our part at the Department of Energy. We're doing our part by investing more in R&D to improve the internal combustion engine, to reduce vehicle weights through lighter materials, and to improve the aerodynamics of our heavy-duty vehicles. And through our advanced technology in vehicle manufacturing program, we're supporting companies that are making next-generation fuel-efficient vehicles and components in the United States that can compete all around the world. Yeah, that's worth it. This is not some abstract notion. Under that program, we extended a loan of about $5.9 billion to Ford, which is now supporting jobs in Ohio, in Michigan, in Illinois, in Kentucky, and Missouri. We're not going to stop there. Electrification is the next exciting innovation we're going to talk about. And you heard an excellent presentation today, and that's happening not just here. I've opened battery plants in Tennessee. It's happening all over this country. And it's going to help reduce our dependence on imported oil. It's going to put Americans back to work, and it's going to cut pollution, even as we're reinforcing and recreating more and more jobs in a strengthened manufacturing sector. Now, we are proud at the Department of Energy to be really early-stage investors. You know, it's not fair to expect an investor who's out there to wait, hey, no, I think I'll wait 15, 20 years for my payback. Nobody's going to want to do that, right? So our value add is very, very strong at early-stage R&D investment, and the investments we made 2 decades ago in first-generation hybrid vehicles at places like Argonne National Laboratory near Chicago have produced the lithium-ion battery breakthroughs for vehicles that are now enabling this whole electrification revolution in the market today. Now, to win the battery and electrical vehicle race, the Department of Energy is partnering with industry to reduce manufacturing costs of advanced batteries, because it's not good enough just to have the batteries. We got to get them competitive in price and down in weight as well. Of course, everybody here knows Michigan is at the forefront of this effort. Companies all over the state are producing the parts that will power electrical vehicles on the road. And I want to again acknowledge Congressman Clark and your outstanding delegation for the leadership that they have provided in making this happen. To make vehicles even more affordable, in March we announced an initiative focusing on advanced electrical vehicle technologies and reducing costs so that a decade from now, electrical vehicles will be more affordable and convenient to own than today's gasoline-powered vehicles. Now, there's another aspect to the transformation of our transportation fleet I'm sure everybody here knows about, probably wants to hear about, and that's providing smarter energy solutions through alternative fuels. This includes the development of biofuels and natural gas for our cars, for our trucks, and our buses. And we're not just talking the talk in Washington, we're walking the walk. President Obama has directed every federal agency to make sure that by 2015, all new vehicles that we purchase are either electric, gas hybrid, or alternatively fueled. We're not stopping there. We're funding a lot of very interesting biofuel technology and R&D. This incredible development we've witnessed in past years with the shale gas revolution driving down prices makes a whole range of other technologies possibly competitive and interesting, from looking at liquefied natural gas for our long-haul corridors where you have huge trucks that can get the benefit from that, to looking at the kind of innovations you can do with compressed natural gas, fleet vehicles, and if we get some of our R&D to succeed in getting the tanks down and getting the pressure down and getting the 3,500 PSI tanks down to a 500 PSI tank and so forth, you can talk about migrating compressed natural gas out of the niche market of fleet vehicles across the whole light-duty fleet. That would be a huge game changer and another great progress for American technology. Now, everybody here also knows you can't just think about an electrical car by itself. And when you're talking about driving down pollution, the electric car, that's a good thing, but of course, ultimately, it's only as clean as the power that it gets off the grid, okay? So, yeah, that's where, yeah, absolutely. So when you heard President Obama in the State of the Union say he's going to double the amount of electricity we get from clean sources by 2035 to 80%, that directly affects our automobile fleet, and it directly affects the ability of electric cars to help drive down carbon pollution even as we're driving up American competitiveness. Now, this has occasioned some amount of discussion, okay? To me, it really comes down to a very simple choice. Everyone around the world is investing. Europeans are investing, the Chinese are investing. They're investing in the new technologies. They're investing in solar. They're investing in wind. The question is, are we going to buy their stuff, or are we going to make our stuff and have them buy our stuff? Right? I think the choice is clear. And why shouldn't it be? Who can out-innovate? Who can outbuild us and our workers and our companies? President Obama has said, who wins the clean energy revolution will rule the world. And there's truth in that. We have led. We led in the Industrial Revolution. We led in the Information Technology Revolution. This is the next revolution. We need to be in the forefront. And we can be. Where do you get better innovation than you get here in this country? As Secretary Chu has said, it's not enough to invent the technology. Our motto must be invented in America, made in America, and sold around the world. So we are blessed that we have the most powerful asset we need for this next revolution, and that's the American worker and American innovation, American creativity, and yes, American ambition. And we're going to draw on that same skill set that has helped us win every challenge that we face, from World War II to the Cold War, to win this next challenge, because it's that important. And the good news, we're making progress. Since 2008, we've almost doubled the amount of energy that we get from renewable resources. And this was surprising to many people, we've caught up and now passed China for investments in new energy. So that's why this week, President Obama called for the extension of the production tax credit and the clean energy manufacturing credit, which together could support 100,000 American jobs. And I will tell you, the best part of my job is going around and seeing it happen. You know, it's one thing to have, it's nice to see a piece of paper go from here to over there. It's really satisfying. It is. Sometimes there's even an initial on it. But when I went out to Kansas City, and I went to the plant that was making long blades for these wind turbines, and I talked to really smart shop foremen and people on the floor who had been out of work, okay? Out of work. And they said to me, please don't let that production tax credit expire. That's put us back to work. That's putting us back in the lead. That's the kind of leadership we need. So what are you hearing here? This is not about one person. This is not even about one industry. It's not about one state. This is about our future. And you know what else? It's about our families. And it's about our children. And it's about their future. I think this is an incredibly exciting moment for the nation. I want to see us continue to regain the lead that we've won through hard work, through innovation, and yes, through vision. Vision of our leaders, and vision of the people in this room, and vision of the people you represent. With that kind of vision, there's nothing we cannot do. And I want to salute your congressional leadership. I want to salute your union leadership. I want to salute the companies for whom you all work. But most of all, I want to salute you and I want to thank you. And I say, God bless you for all you're doing for this country, and keep it up.